Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're tuning in, you are probably staring down one of the most intimidating hurdles in a budding cybersecurity career. We're talking about preparing for a Level 1 Security Operations Center analyst position. It's a role that demands just a massive breadth of knowledge. And let's be real, prepping for this interview can totally feel like trying to drink from a fire hose. But hey, don't worry, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're going to frame this immense challenge and give you the ultimate tool, which is clarity. We're taking the complex and breaking it down into an actionable, highly structured masterclass. Take a look at the source material we're working with today. It is literally an absolute beast of a document, a massive, dense 100-question SOC Level 1 interview guide that covers everything from malware analysis to network architecture. Now, if you just try to sit down and memorize all 5 pages of this thing, you're going to burn out before you even step foot in the interview room. So we're not just going to read this massive study guide line by line. Instead, we're going to hack it. We're going to extract the absolute core concepts, group them logically, and serve them up in bite-sized pieces that will actually stick in your brain when the pressure is on. Okay, let's quickly hit our agenda to categorize all this chaos. We've got 1. Welcome to the SOC. 2. Common cyber threats. 3. Core network defenses. 4. Key security concepts. And 5. The interview mindset. Let's dive right in. Section 1. Welcome to the SOC, your first day. Picture this. You've just badged in, you've got your coffee in hand. Question 1 in almost any interview is usually some variation of what exactly is the role of a SOC L1 analyst? Well, you are the frontline defender. You're essentially the triage nurse of the digital emergency room. Your daily job is to monitor events and logs, identify potential threats, filter out all that background noise, and escalate the real incidents up to the Tier 2 and Tier 3 analysts. In your interview, you want to deliver this definition clearly and punchily. It shows you truly understand the scope of the job. You aren't there to magically re-architect the entire network on day one. You're there to be the vigilant first line of defense. And how do you actually maintain that vigilance? You do it through your SIEM, Security, Information, and Event Management. Think of the SIEM as the SOC's ultimate security camera system, but instead of video feeds, it's pulling in thousands of text logs every single second from firewalls, servers, employee laptops, and aggregating them into one centralized dashboard. So in an interview, don't just regurgitate the acronym. Explain that it's the central nervous system of your daily operations. It's the core engine that allows you to detect and respond to anomalies in real time. Section 2, Common Cyber Threats, the enemies at the gate. Let's initiate a rapid-fire sequence of threat definitions, and we'll start with the absolute most common initial compromise vector out there, phishing. So why is phishing still the #1 threat? Well, it's because it targets human psychology rather than just system vulnerabilities. Attackers trick users into clicking a malicious link or coughing up their credentials. Make sure you emphasize this in your interview, because that human element is exactly why it remains so incredibly effective and why you're going to see it every single shift. Next up in our rapid-fire sequence is ransomware. This is malicious software that encrypts a victim's data, actively paralyzing the network, and then demands a ransom, usually in cryptocurrency, to restore access. In an interview setting, point out that ransomware is often the devastating payload delivered after a successful phishing attack. Showing how these threats chain together like that demonstrates a really mature analytical mindset. Finally, we have DDoS, or Distributed Denial of Service. Now, unlike ransomware that locks up data, a DDoS attack specifically targets availability. It overwhelms a target's server or network with massive, coordinated junk traffic from multiple compromised sources. It basically functions exactly like a malicious traffic jam on the highway, completely preventing legitimate users from getting to their destination. Make sure to emphasize the word distributed here. It's not just one single computer attacking. It's a whole botnet, which makes it infinitely harder to block. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the difference in how candidates answer. A novice candidate just defines the threats, but a top-tier candidate immediately maps those threats to their targets and SOC mitigations. Just look at this breakdown. Phishing targets the end user, right? So we mitigate it with email filters and user training. Ransomware targets data, so we mitigate with offline backups and network segmentation. DDoS targets network availability, so we deploy rate limiting. Seriously, memorize this structure. If you structure your interview answers exactly like this, you are proving to the hiring manager that you already think like a defender. Section 3, Core Network Defenses, Protecting the Perimeter. Okay, Imagine you're sitting across from the hiring manager. They lean forward, look over your resume, and drop this classic high-stakes mock interview question. Can you explain the difference between an IDS and an IPS? Look, this is a fundamental gatekeeping question. If you stumble here, it's pretty tough to recover, but we're going to nail it. It all comes down to action versus observation. An IDS, or intrusion detection system, is the alarm. It monitors network traffic, detects malicious signatures or anomalies, and sends an alert over to your SIEM. It watches, but it does not interfere. An IPS, or intrusion prevention system, well, that's the bouncer. It sits right there in the active flow of traffic, and when it spots something malicious, it actively blocks or drops those packets before they ever enter the network. In short, the IDS yells, the IPS acts. So what happens when the IDS alarm actually goes off? You follow the incident response process. Cybersecurity is an active, structured procedure. Our source guide clearly outlines these 6 standard steps. We start fast. First, preparation, having your tools and policies ready to go. Second, identification, confirming an actual incident is occurring. Third, containment, stopping the bleeding, kind of like taking an infected machine completely off the network. Fourth, eradication, getting in there and removing the malware. Fifth, recovery, restoring data from your backups. And then, absolutely crucial, step 6, lessons learned. This is where you slow down and update your defenses so it never, ever happens again. Walk the interviewer through these steps like you've done it 100 times. Section 4, Key Security Concepts, the defensive philosophy. So the crucial point here is that almost everything in information security traces back to this one single concept, the CIA triad. Confidentiality means keeping secrets secret, ensuring only authorized people can see the data. Integrity means making sure the data is accurate and hasn't been maliciously altered in transit. And availability means the systems are actually up and running when authorized users need them. If an interviewer asks you how you evaluate risk or impact, immediately tie it back to the CIA triad. Ask aloud, does this alert threaten our confidentiality, our integrity, or our availability? Building on that philosophy is the modern framework that is absolutely dominating the industry right now: zero trust. In the old days, we built a hard shell around the network, right? But we assumed anyone inside that shell was trustworthy. Well, zero trust throws that completely out the window. It is the strict mantra of never trust, always verify. It requires strict, continuous identity verification for every single user, every device, and every application, regardless of whether they're logging in from a coffee shop down the street or from a desk inside corporate headquarters. Demonstrating your grasp of zero trust proves you understand exactly where the future of SOC environments is heading. Now, why do you care about a port number or a hash at 3 a.m. when you're heavily caffeinated and staring at a screen? Well, hashing is a one-way mathematical function that gives a file a unique digital fingerprint. It matters because if you find a suspicious file, you can check its hash against known malware databases to instantly verify if it's dangerous, which, by the way, secures that integrity piece of the CIA triad we just talked about. Ports, on the other hand, are the specific numbered doors on a server where traffic enters and exits. Knowing your ports, like port 80 for HTTP or port 22 for SSH, tells you exactly what kind of traffic the attacker is actually trying to exploit. Section 5. The interview mindset, landing the job. Take a really close look at the quote here. In our original source document, the author actually wrote, "Keep learning, stay curious, and protect the digital world," at the footer of every single page. That's definitely not an accident. Interviewers want a continuous learner. The threat landscape literally changes daily. They don't just want someone who memorized a stack of flashcards. They want someone who is genuinely curious about how networks operate and how attackers think. You've got to show them your passion for the puzzle. All right, the network is monitored, the perimeter is secured, and the fundamental concepts are officially mastered. You now have the structural blueprint to completely hack that 100-question guide. The only thing left to ask is, are you ready to take the hot seat? Take these concepts, practice mapping the threats to the mitigations, remember to always verify, and go absolutely ace that SOC L1 interview. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.